Welcome to the Wandering Tangent Podcast. I'm BJ. With me is Jeff. Today we're talking about the 1960 Western, The Magnificent Seven.
Okay, BJ, what did you think of the Magnificent Seven?
So I suppose the first thing I should do is something we should have done like a week ago when we decided to watch this, is that you did watch the 1960 one and not the 2016 one, right?
That would be funny. We'll just talk about two different movies.
Just two different
Why
movies.
not?
Okay.
It wasn't Denzel Washington really good in this? Okay.
Yeah, is Denzel Washington in the 2016 one? I've actually never seen it.
Okay.
So
Okay, no, there's two of them. I know he's in one of them. I think there was one that came out a couple of years ago. And then there's one in the 90s, right?
There was one in 26. There's the 1960, and there's one in 2016.
2016 is, I believe, the Denzel Washington one.
Yeah, that's Denzel Washington and Chris Pratt.
Yeah. So, no, I didn't watch any of those. I watched the 1960s one.
Okay.
You know, back in our day when they made movies the right way. That's the one I watched.
Back in our day when we were...
when we were negative 20-odd years.
We were like negative 30.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So I did watch the right one, right?
Okay,
1960.
Yes. Yeah, 1960. Yul Brynner and like a who's who of tough guy actors at the time.
Definitely. I really liked that particular movie because I'm also a big fan of The Seven Samurai. As, you know, a film nerd who likes to pretend like he knows things, I do like The Seven Samurai too. So those movies are they're like buddy.
We were...
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I chose to watch this one, because we were talking about wanting to watch a Western, and way back when we first started way back when you started floating the idea of doing a podcast to me, the very first movie that you wanted to watch was, in fact, The Seven Samurai. And I was like, maybe let's not start with a 3.5-hour subtitle movie.
Yeah. It's a great movie. Anyone who's just, got a little free time, sit down, relax, watch a 3.5-hour movie with subtitles from a different culture that might be difficult to understand at different points. Yeah. So it's better to watch that we watch this one. The Magnificent Seven is something that is easier for an American audience, but it does follow that really great storyline from the Seven Samurai. Yeah. And it has a lot of the fun things, a lot of the camera work and other stuff. They try to repeat the success of it. Yeah.
I have, in fact, never seen The Seven Samurai, so I can't really discuss how that similar they are, like the camera movement and stuff.
They're similar. There's even scenes that are just like the same. There's even monologues that are basically transposed into English with a few different cultural changes to them, but they're basically the same. But That being said, there are a few different parts where the storyline will be a little bit different than the two. So,
well, that's just what happens when you, I guess, adapt a movie. Because like, even back when you were talking about Godzilla, like the Western version of that is different enough from the Japanese version, and it's more or less the same movie, but with a different actor spliced in.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. Okay, so now back to... We don't have to keep going on about the fact that it's related to the Seven Samurai. But what did you think of it just as a movie by itself? What is your opinion of it?
So, since I already let the cat out of the bag, I was the one that chose this one, and I get enough of watching movies I don't exactly like from when you choose movies. I like this one. That's why I chose to watch it.
Did you just say you don't like when I choose movies? Like you don't like some of my selections? Because that would kind of make sense, because you didn't like some of the ones I picked, for sure.
Oh, all I'm saying is that out of the what episode this one's going to be, I think this particular episode's going to be like episode 15 or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
out of those 15 episodes, we've watched 3 movies I have not liked, and all 3 of those have been picked by you. The
Well, I guess it'd
Star
be kind
Trek.
of weird if you picked your own movie that you hated.
Well,
But I tried
you,
to do that with Armageddon, so yeah.
I was gonna say you were gonna do that, then you chose not to.
Yeah.
Instead you picked a movie that you thought I liked, but I didn't.
So why do you like this movie? What is it? It's a Western, right? You do like Westerns?
Yeah, I like westerns.
Okay, so what do you like about this Western? What makes it great?
I hmm, I don't know if I would go as far as to say it's great, but it's entertaining, which
Okay.
is I guess good enough for me. I'm not like you where I enjoy movies that are not entertaining,
The not
but
entertaining ones are better,
I am
according to the
I'm
mad, mad world I live in. Yes, that's true.
I I'm not one of those sad as a new happy people. But no, I just it's a good movie. It's easy to watch, easy to understand. It's relatively timeless, as I guess most westerns are in that sense that they like. I have no idea where I was going with that. So let's just
Hmm.
next subject.
Well, I can tell you what I think.
Okay.
So a lot of the westerns from this time period, the late 50s, early 60s, um, even up to the 70s, like a lot of these westerns, it's not so much that I don't like them. They're all basically kind of good. Some of them, of course, are kind of boring, but um, they kind of none of them are as good as this one, I think. I really love the 1970s westerns the most. I like those.
You're more of
Like the
a
Italian westerns, and yeah.
yeah. I was gonna say we were when we were talking about westerns. You were talking about like the Man with No Name,
Yeah.
the Clint Eastwood ones.
Right. So out of if we were to box all the westerns into the American westerns from the 1960s, 50s, those 2 decades, I think this one is my favorite of those. I the combination of the music and the just the visuals of everything and the scenes that they go to and some of the dialogue is kind of fun and interesting. I won't say that most of the dialogue is all that like spectacular, but it's not bad. So when you judge it as a whole, it's a good movie from that time period, and I think it's very iconic uh, for a lot of people that have watched westerns. And the first time I had actually heard about this movie is from watching Cheers, which is a show that I'm kind of a fan of as well. Because in Cheers, everybody in that bar loves the Magnificent Seven. It's their favorite movie. So every time it's coming on, they just get all excited about it and they all go to somebody's house to watch it together. And I had never heard about it until I had seen that episode from Cheers and they were singing that song in it. And I thought, I've heard that song before. And so I eventually watched the film. And I think most people have probably heard the soundtrack to it, but a lot of people haven't actually seen the movie. But it's got an excellent soundtrack.
I feel like this is the second or third time we've. I mean, I did not know that I did not know that at the time of choosing this, but this is not the first time we have watched a movie that you had first heard about from a different forum. Well, I guess we didn't actually watch. I didn't watch the the other movie that you had heard of it from a different form of media because you watched like 10 minutes of it and hated it, so we watched something else.
Oh, oh, uh, what
Ishtar?
is Ishtar? Yeah, I heard about that from a Far Side comic. So yeah, there was a Far Side comic that was really funny. It's
No. Now, mind you, audience, this is the same guy. I was like, yeah, let's watch Star Wars Holiday Special again. And went through with that. Apparently, Ishtar is actually so bad that he couldn't even make it through that and
yeah,
choosing not to watch it.
yeah. I don't. Yeah, I think the Star Wars Holiday Special. It's hard to watch, but at least it's Star Wars from the 1970s.
Did you not
Like,
have like a bunch of Star Trek DVDs to organize when you were watching Ishtar or anything like that?
no, I didn't. It was just me and Ishtar, and it was too much. They just keep on. they're songwriters and they keep trying to write songs and they're so bad at it. And it's supposed to be funny. It's a funny thing. Like, look how these comedic clowns write songs and they're not good at it. But it's just really, it's a joke that goes on and on and on.
Oh, so you could say it's awkward, huh?
It's awkward. Yes, it's awkward. It's a weird kind of awkward. It's like a kryptonite kind of awkward, not a nice kind of awkward.
I'm bringing this up because I got done doing the audio on the Burbs episode this week, so that's relatively fresh in my mind.
Yeah, the whole
About you,
what is good
you give me a hard
awkward.
time. Well, all comedy's awkward, BJ. Do you not like any comedy?
I know, using all these arguments against you.
No, here we are. We find out the truth.
Yep. Okay, so we both like it. Do we recommend it?
Yes.
Do you recommend it? You recommend it to everyone?
Yeah, if you like westerns, it is a violent movie, so I don't know if like super young children, or if it'd be good for super young children, but
Yeah, there is like shooting and killing in it.
there's shooting, there's a little bit of blood, but it's made in the 60s. I don't have my DVD case right next to me, so I can't tell you what the rating is, but I reckon it's PG.
Yeah.
But no,
Yeah, but those ratings don't really tell you much about what to expect in it. But yeah, there's a few people get killed. Actually, a lot of people get killed. Now that I think about it.
It's like a lot of people get killed.
But there's like a few of them that it's like a traumatic thing. But a lot of other people get killed.
Yeah, we'll say that for spoilers. I actually just watched it this morning because something came up last night, so I wasn't able to watch it last night. So when I got home from work, I plugged it in a few hours ago, and like the start of the final shootout is way more brutal than what I remember.
Really?
Because
when did you first watch this show?
It was probably a long time. It was years and years ago. I probably watched it on TV at some point. You know, I did not remember them going back into town and like sort of once they're caught by one guard, they just kind of start shooting the bandits while they're like still asleep. That was pretty brutal.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so people should be wary of those things. Okay, so yeah, I would recommend it as long as it's probably not so much family oriented, unless you're okay with a little bit of killing here and there. But yeah, for those who are wanting to get into westerns and they don't mind a little bit of the shooty stuff, then the spaghetti westerns would be better to start out. But if you don't like the spaghetti westerns, this is like the next thing that's really good.
I mean, I think this is a pretty good entry point. Like, I mean, if you're not a big fan of the shooty, you're probably not going to like westerns.
In general, it's like, I really want to watch westerns, but it's all the gun violence stuff. I mean, I'd rather that they just farmed and herd their sheep and then the movie's over.
I mean, I'm sure there's some westerns that have less of the shooty than, say, the Magnificent Seven or like A Fistful of Dollars and Once Upon a Time in the West and all those, but I would say this is a pretty good entry point and a solid western all around.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Okay, should we get into spoilers and then spoil all the things that happened in the movie?
Yeah, you were. Oh yeah, I guess we're talking about spoilers. You might as well get right to it because yeah, there is quite a bit of dramatic death in this movie, considering that it's called the Magnificent Seven because there's 7 good guy gunfighters and I think only 3 of them live.
Yeah. Yep. Which is also the plot line from The Seven Samurai. I promise I will not bring up that movie every single time we make a comment. I promise.
No, you can.
But my brain gets triggered. It does.
I mean, it is, in fact, based on The Seven Samurai. It's like right in the credits. It's like right in the credits of the movie, at least on my Blu-ray version. It has inspired by The Seven Samurai right in the credits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. And this movie was inspired by The Three Amigos.
I think you mean The Three Amigos was inspired by this movie.
Yes, of course.
Considering The Three Amigos came out like 40 years after this movie. Okay, well, maybe not 40, more like 30, but
Well, I
still.
mean, when you watch this movie, uh, The Magnificent Seven, it's obvious. It's like, wow, the three amigos are all over this movie. Like the whole idea of the town and they're coming in to save it. It's yeah. So the Three Amigos, I think, was based on an old. I want to say that I want to believe it's real. Like there really is an old silent movie that it was based upon, but it's also based upon the Magnificent Seven too. And then they have a little bit of history worked in. But yeah, a lot of it's interesting. I like to see how movies are kind of connected. Like one inspires the other. Um, but yeah, Three Amigos is definitely was inspired by Magnificent Seven. Just trying to be funny by reversing it, but then how would that be funny? I don't know.
So,
Long, awkward pause.
well, I am checking something just in case I'm remembering wrong. Yes. So, fun fact, the guy who did the music for the Magnificent Seven, Elmer Bernstein, also did the music for the Three Amigos.
Really?
Yep.
I am so happy we brought up the Three Amigos so that we can make that connection. That is
There
really
it,
good.
there is in fact a direct connection between the Three Amigos and I keep at this point I keep trying I have to stop myself from saying the Seven Samurai and say the Magnificent Seven instead.
Yeah. No, I get what you mean. Oh, that's fun. So this music, if you ever go to, at least in my few experiences going to Universal Studios, they had this music playing quite a bit. This adventurous Western sounding music.
It's pretty iconic.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so the music is really good. Um, so the thing that I like about this movie is it draws upon that there's a group of people that are desperate. It has there's just so much it's not like a big epic storyline. It's not like a group of heroes are trying to save the planet. It's that there's a group of heroes that aren't particularly like white knight type of heroes. They're colorful characters that have good and bad and but they genuinely have at least a few good traits that make them very heroic. And they go to save a group of people that, to put it bluntly, like no one really cares about this small group of people, these villagers. They are important to themselves, but outside the village, you get kind of the feeling that nobody really cares about them. There's law enforcement in the area. They can't really help this town. Um, and the bandits, they don't care. They just go in and take what they want. And so I love the idea of heroes just doing something good in one small place. And I think a lot of movies, they lean upon the epic storyline where we have to do something so grand and important that the hero is saving the whole earth or saving this huge important thing. They're mixed up in this international plot line or something. But no, this is not like that. This is just a group of gunfighters who go to help a desperate poor town. And they do it for almost nothing because they're also in hard times. And some of them, they need a little bit of cash, but others, they just do it because it's an opportunity just to do something. And they want to be there in the action. And they just need that kind of stuff. They need their adrenaline up or something. And it's just what they know, and so they want to do it. So
Yeah,
I like that.
yeah, some do it because they're hard up for cash. A couple that do it because it's the right thing. You have the young guy who does it because he thinks it's cool.
He's trying to prove something too. He's young and he wants to prove something about himself. I would say.
Yeah, you have the one guy who does it because he thinks that the guy hiring him has like a side angle on it, like there's like a secret gold mine or something. He's like, yeah, we'll do that.
Which he kind of knows. You get a sense like that he knows that there really is no gold, but he's telling himself that anyway. I think that most of these people, they've hit on really hard times. They don't have a lot of opportunities or prospects. Would you agree?
Yeah, and to be fair, some of the characters don't get a lot of characterization.
Yeah.
I mean, the one that I always thought was the most interesting was the one played by Robert Vaughn Lee, sort of the guy who's well dressed,
Mm-hmm.
and he's there uh, because he gets recruited by Yul Brynner's character Chris, and like when they first come across each other, Yul Brynner's character's like, "Oh, I thought you were tracking down the so and so brothers," and Lee's like, "Well, yeah, I found them," and it seems as though he didn't get the better part of that exchange because he's like hiding out in this town
Mm.
and he's very obviously hiding. And when they're in the town, when they're in the farming town, it turns out that there's been a couple of gunfights and he hasn't really taken part of them. And he like wakes up from a nightmare and a couple of villagers come and see what's going on, and it turns out that he's a gunfighter who has lost his nerve. He
Mm-hmm.
has he's the only thing he can think about when he goes in a fight is that he's going to come across the guy who's faster than he is.
Yeah, but he's been through a lot. But he's kind of at he's broken. He's at
He
a wrecked point where it's hard for him to keep going. But he doesn't really want to put on that kind of vibe in front of other people.
Yeah, so he's not necessarily a good guy, though I guess in the end he does kind of redeem himself because he does go back. He does go back at the end, albeit just to prove to himself that he can. I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How about you? Is there any particular character that stands out to you?
Well, so the one thing that is both good about this movie, but also um, is a struggle, is that when you have 7 people, that's a lot of people for the audience to keep track of. And I'm not saying that as an excuse. I mean, obviously you can pay attention and do that, but I think there's a reason why most movies don't have 7 main characters. They usually have like to have 7 of them and keep track of them all. I don't really remember their names, to be honest, but is there one in particular? I really like the lead, Chris.
The one
He,
played the one played
yeah,
by Brenner, Yul Brenner.
yes, he is always good in Western movies. I've always liked him in particular. He also did a movie where he was a robot, like a robot cowboy.
Yeah, Westworld.
Westworld. He was
And,
really good in that. If the
and,
Terminator was made in the 1960s, the Terminator movies, Yul Brenner would be awesome at that part.
and he pretty much wears the same outfit in that movie, right?
Yeah.
I I had seen Westworld at some point, but I can't remember a lot about it.
No, it's been a while, but yeah,
And
he's
and Westworld was oops, sorry.
Go ahead, go ahead.
And Westworld was 1973, and the 70s were kind of a weird time for sci-fi,
Yep,
in my
definitely
opinion at least.
a weird time until
There's
Star Wars tamed the
well,
whole market.
I won't say I've seen a lot of 1970s sci-fi, but from the 1970s sci-fi I've seen, I haven't liked a lot of them, shall we say.
Well, my theory is that in the 1960s, people started to get, you know, all of that, where they started to get into all sorts of different theological ideas of stuff. And a lot of that gets into the sci-fi because you have these sci-fi writers who start writing these weird storylines and other things. And I think Star Wars, things get better because then they took examples from World War II and examples from Flash Gordon, you know, other those kinds of things and put them together. And they made something that was a little less like the storylines are a little less weird. Of course, they also had like the Force and stuff, which is it has it in there, but it's a lot more, I don't know, like a lot more basic of a good guys bad guys storyline. Yeah, there's a lot of wild, weird sci-fi in the 70s. Definitely.
Yeah, I'm checking the dates of a couple of movies I'm thinking of, and yeah, like 1970s sci-fi, you have stuff like Soylent Green and Logan's Run.
Logan's Run is weird, but you're picking out good examples. You could probably also find lots of 1970s sci-fi that's just really weird.
I well,
And we
actually,
should review those sometimes.
I've seen Toilet, I've seen Logan's Run. I don't remember being terribly impressed by it. I don't know if I've sat down and watched Soylent Green from end to end, but I think pretty much everyone knows the big spoiler on that. So just in
Yeah.
case you know, spoilers about Soylent Green. It's made out of people.
Yep. Soylent Green is a good one. That is a good movie.
At this point, I am somewhat cautious about your recommendations.
I know. You know, when we started, you had different views of me than you do now, probably. Apparently, I have very weird opinions on films. I really like Soylent Green and Planet of the Apes, good sci-fi ones from the 70s.
So you just like the Charlton Heston sci-fi movies?
I do like a lot of Charlton Heston stuff. It's true. Yeah. Seven Samurai. I mean, dang it. Magnificent Seven. We have to get back to that. Okay, so the storyline is very similar, but I will quickly tell about the things that are different, just to get it out of my chest. I gotta nerd up and just mention a few things. So most of the sequences are kind of the same. The Seventh Samurai does a better job of strategy. They really do a lot more strategic things to protect the village and to try and get this outmatched battle where the bandits have lots of weapons and the numbers and lots more expertise in fighting than this village. And they only have 7 samurai, so they're really outmatched. The actual skilled fighters versus the other side, they're skilled fighters. It's a complete mismatch. So they have to do all sorts of strategy to try and tip the balance in their favor. And they go in much more depth into that. And there's a lot more struggles in keeping the village doing what the samurai tells them to do. So there's a lot of things, but the Magnificent Seven doesn't have as much of that. They build walls, and when the bandits come in, there's like this showdown between the two. And I don't remember anything like that in the Seventh Samurai, but also there's this point where they get betrayed by the villagers. The villagers decide to give up. And tell me if I'm wrong about that. I sometimes miss things in movies, but it seems like the villagers were like, we're just going to like let the bandits in, and we don't want to keep fighting because we'll just all get wiped out. So they kind of betray the gunmen.
Well,
that doesn't happen in the Seven Samurai at all. They fight until the end.
Yeah, the vibe I got from that scene is that I think the town was split. You know, at this point they had a couple of showdowns against the bandits. Like they had the first one where they caught the bandits by surprise that they were actually fighting back, and they were feeling real good about that. But then the bandits like started sniping at them, and so the Seven had to leave town for a bit to go take care of the snipers. I think the idea was that the townsfolk had convinced themselves that after the first big fight that the bandits were gonna go pick on a different village, but then the sniper showed up, started shooting at him, and then the young gunfighter Chico, he goes and like sneaks into the camp, and it turns out the bandits have nowhere else to go. They're out of food. They haven't eaten in a few days since the townsfolk managed to fight them off. So it turns out that the bandits are do or die as well. So they thought the bandits were just going to go away and go pick on someone else, but it turns out they weren't. The bandits were back into her quarters as well. So some of the townsfolk started thinking that they weren't gonna survive a fight to the death.
Yeah, because they found out that this battle isn't going to, like, they're not going to just show a certain amount of strength and then scare them off. there was going to be a lot more fighting, and so they did betray them, right? That's what I.
So I think the idea is that at least so so after after Chico goes up and finds out the information, the the seven go up and seek up to the camp, but the camp's empty. But when they go back to town, the bandits have shown up, and I guess enough of the townspeople like let them in that like the townspeople who do want to fight are captured, and everyone else doesn't want to fight. So
Mhm.
I
So
guess it's kind of a
he kind of
halfway
says
portrayal.
like these people they don't want to follow you. So it's as if they snuck back into the town and they were able to just ride in unopposed or something.
Well,
Um,
the main bad guy, what's his name? Calvera,
yeah.
something like that. He he says that my good friend so and so like one of the townspeople like let him in. So but at the same time, he also he's talking to Chris, Hulsbrenner character during this conversation, and says that the gunfighters aren't so popular anymore because they're asking the townsfolk to make a lot of decisions, whereas the bad guy is only giving them one choice. That's to do what he says or not. So
Yeah.
so I think it's kind of half and half
It's half and half. Okay. That
because
kind of makes it more clear. I was actually confused and I rewatched it and tried to pick up on exactly what happened
because
because yeah, on one
be,
hand, go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, because at the end when the gunfighters come back, once some of the townsfolk are free, they start fighting back as well. And then there's the guy who quote unquote let the bandits in and the people he's with, and they're watching the fight going on. It gets to the point where they kind of take up arms as well and go and fight for their town as well.
Hmm.
So so in the end, they all side with the gunfighters, but I guess there's sort of a divide in the town before then,
Mm-hmm.
because like some of the townsfolk were like under guard when the gunfighters come back to have the last fight.
But not all of them.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, so it's not like a complete betrayal.
no, it's about half and half, I think, or it's it's not 100%, but the community is divided, and it was divided enough that the bandits were able to take the town without a fight when the gunfighters weren't there.
Yeah. Well, I could imagine like without the gunfighters there and present, especially with like Chris's character, the main gunfighter, without their leadership, they probably wouldn't do anything. They would ride in and yeah. I mean, they say over in several different points, these farmers, they're not militant like at all. They're just farmers. And
Well, yeah, at the start of the movie, the three towns, three guys who end up hiring the gunfighters, they're actually trying to find someone to buy guns for them because they don't know anything about guns, and they come across Chris and what's the guy's name? Steve McQueen's character.
we'll just call him Steve McQueen.
Yeah,
Much easier that way.
and and like and they show up in this town, and Yul Brynner's character and Steve McQueen's character, they sort of team up because there's a little bit of a hullabaloo going on in this town where I guess someone died and like a traveling salesperson like paid for this guy's funeral, but the guy who died was a Native American, and there's an element in town who doesn't want a non-white person buried in their graveyard.
Yeah.
So there's this big row going on, and Steve McQueen's characters and Yul Brynner's characters are like, okay, fine, whatever. We'll just
Yeah,
go
they
take
don't
care of this.
and they don't know each other. You get kind
No.
of a sense that they do, but no, at this point they are strangers. They just happen to be in the town at the same time, and they're in the corral together. There's a lot of people in the corral overhearing what's happening. So they're just two gunfighters that just are there that volunteer to take this hearse up to the cemetery.
Yeah, and they sort of set the stage of why a lot of the gunfighters go along because one's from Dodge City, the other one's from Tombstone, but the West is starting to the West is starting to get tame, so there's not a lot of job for gunfighters anymore.
Yep.
So they're both just kind of drifting and happen to end up in this place.
Hmm. Yeah, that's the background of these gunfighters. They're not like doing really well. At least they're just doing odd jobs and getting by. And the one guy, Steve McQueen's character, he loses all his money. He gambles it all in hopes of getting something, and he just immediately loses it. And then he goes over and accepts the job. That's a good sequence too. But it's really good in a movie to not just say, "Hey, this is a good character. You should like this character." Instead, to actually show the audience why they should like a character. That's a big distinctive difference. And so it's great that these two characters, they take the hearse up, and there's this tiny little tense gun battle where people are probably going to shoot at them as they attempt to do this. So it establishes how they just don't care about when there's something that they think is right and they want to do. They want to do that. They just don't care about anything else. So it shows that they're willing to take risks. So it's a good intro. It's a good intro to a hero. Yeah. Anyway, I can say more. I can go on and on forever, really.
Yeah. I think this is going to be kind of an interesting episode because I'm running off about 4 hours of sleep, and you had some stuff going on made so we're started like 2 hours late. So
4 hours of sleep. Very interesting episode then.
So I don't think either of us are in our right minds right now, so it's going to be fun.
Okay. Well, so there's a few lines in here that I really like. And one of them is when the gunfighters come to the town and there's nobody in the town. They're hiding. They're scared of these people. And the old man in the village comes out and talks to Huel Brenner, his character, and says, "Look, they're farmers. They're afraid of everything. They're afraid that the summer will be too hot. They're afraid that the winter will be too cold. If the sow, the mother pig, as it's called, the sow has too few piglets, then they're worried they'll starve. If she has too many, then they'll worry that the sow will starve." So it's this really good lines where you just kind of explain the whole culture behind them. That these farmers, they're living just off of the land, and everything is a struggle, whether it's too much or too little. They're always worried about these things. So I just like those kinds of lines that are like that. Because in the Seven Samurai, they really bring you into this storyline where these peasants, these villagers, these farmers, they're just desperate. They've been trying to grow a harvest, and they've had drought and other problems. And for the bandits to come in and take even not all of what they had, but some of what they had, or a big portion of it, even for them to do that, it's just so incredibly devastating to lose that. And in the Seventh Samurai, they really go through the agony of the villagers and all the desperation. They go through it a lot more, but in Magnificent Seven, it's still there, where the villagers are together and they're talking and they explain their desperation, and how they want to fight, but then they don't. Maybe it's better just to give up their food, because then Calvera will mostly leave them alone. So they have to choose between these two bad options. And one of my other favorite lines is what's his name? He's another actor. He's the guy that was chopping wood.
Charles Bronson.
Yeah, you know all these names. Yeah, Charles Bronson. Is that the character? You have the IMDb up. Okay.
I have the IMDb up. The character is Bernardo O'Reilly.
Yeah, so he has a really good line where there's a group of boys, young people, and he's really good about befriending kids. And a few of them come up and they're complaining about how their fathers just won't fight. uh, and
Yeah, and this
he's
scene,
go ahead.
yeah, just just to give context. In the so this is after the bandits sneak back into town and take the town while the gunfighters are gone, but the bandits are actually going to let the gunfighters go because it's just business. It's not anything personal, more or less.
And they're hoping that as the gunfighters leave, that they'll spread the reputation for this group of bandits, um, so that they'll tell everyone how mean these bandits are, and word will get out about how no one should mess with them, and no one should try to help villagers seeking protection from them. And yeah, and
Anyway,
all
you were
they
saying.
really want is the village. They just want the goods from the village. They're not interested in a fight with other gunmen, really. But anyway,
Anyway,
yeah.
I'd say I didn't mean to derail your train of thought.
No, 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 that's
You're
good.
talking about the conversation with the kids.
Yes. So the kids were going to this guy, and they're like, our fathers are cowards. You guys are brave, you gunfighters, but our farmer fathers, they're just cowards, and they're not fighting. And he says, no, no, that don't. And he actually spanks him. Like he grabs him and spanks the kid. I love the 1960s. Anyway, so he does that, and
Do,
he says.
do any of your kids listen to this podcast?
They might someday, maybe, if they ever get interested enough, they might. But anyway, so uh, he says no. There are many different kinds of courage. You might think your fathers are cowards, but really they're making tough choices all the time. They make their choices the way they do because they're trying to take care of you and to take care of their farm. And it is not easy doing all the things they do because they go out to the fields and they work in the heat and they do that day in and day out. And this is what he explains to them. Like the gunfighters are brave because they have guns, they can stand up to bullies. That's one kind of bravery. But the farmers, they're they're meeting the demands of a drought. They're harvesting and doing all the work. They're planting in hopes that their crops won't fail. They're thinking about all the things that could go wrong, and they're doing it year in and year out. And they're making tough decisions like, do we fight the bandits or do we give up our food to the bandits? There's all these tough things that they have to deal with. And so he explains to them, you're not really seeing the bravery that they have. They are brave in a different way. Um, so it's a good scene. It's a really good scene
Yeah, there's.
because, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, and the thing that it's important about it is even though those gunfighters, they are very brave at being gunfighters, but if you put them behind a plow and like have them do farm work for years, they probably would be into it. They'd give up and they'd get back on their horse and be a drifter again. There's certain things. It's kind of ironic that these really brave people can't do other kinds of bravery, and yet the farmers, they need help to do other. So it's like people are brave in different ways, and so they need this symbiotic relationship between the gunfighters and the farmers where they can kind of help each other.
Well, there's at least one scene where at least one of the gunfighters. It seems like he's kind of pining for that simpler life because I think it's most of the gunfighters are like talking together, and the young hothead is talking about how awesome it is. I think it's Steve McQueen's character. The young hothead Chico is like talking about how this is like everything you want and how this is like everything you want in life. And Steve McQueen character, he he sort of starts adding up like the negatives of the gunfighter's life. He like quote unquote counts up all the hotels he stayed in, like the only people he knows on the first name basis are was like bartenders and like dealers
Mm-hmm.
in like gambling houses. And it's a really good line. I can't remember exactly what it says. It's like wife zero, kid zero, prospects none, something like
Mm-hmm.
that. So it seems like at least one of them kind of wants that simpler life, but at this point he knows that he's not really destined for it.
Yeah.
I'm not doing the scene justice. It's a really good scene.
There's a lot of good scenes in it. Do you think the action is good?
I think the action is all right. If my main complaint about this movie is that 99% of the gunshots is all the same sound effect. It's like it
Like
doesn't
they
matter.
use the very same bang sound over and over again.
It's the same sound. Doesn't matter if it's a pistol, a shotgun, or a rifle. It's the same sound.
I hadn't even thought of that. Now I'm gonna have to rewatch it and analyze every gunshot because that's what I do.
It's
Okay.
it's not it's not every gunshot, but like a good 90% is the like exact same sound effect or very similar unto it.
I wonder how many people notice that. I actually watched a few reviews on this just to kind of see what people talk about generally, and I don't think they said anything like that. Interesting. This is like early sound effects stuff. Was it folio art, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
do you mean Folly work?
I don't know. Whatever. Yeah. They just didn't think about the difference between the sound of a pistol and the sound of a rifle, which are different. Yeah. Hmm. Interesting. I There's something about this movie that uh I don't know. It's a good film, but the comedy relief is okay. I mean, Chico's supposed to kind of make you laugh once in a while, but it's all right. But I wouldn't consider it overtly funny.
I can only think of maybe one scene that's like trying to be straight up funny. I think it's mostly pretty dramatic.
Hmm. It's the scene where he pretends to, uh, where he pretends that the bull is there and he's a matador.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the one that's one I can think of that's like a straight up attempt at comedy.
yeah, yeah. I guess so. Hmm.
Anyway, anything else you want to talk about on this?
Let me think here. Well, we can probably cut this one short. What are we up to? 52 minutes? Yeah. I guess we'll like
Cut it.
make it shorter than an hour and a half like our other ones.
I mean, it's a good movie. I don't know if it quite sneaks into great territory, but maybe that's just me. I don't know.
Hmm. There's two other sequels to this movie, and I haven't seen them, and I don't think people have really talked about them much.
I have not seen him either. Was it like the Return of the Seven and the Magnificent Seven ride again, or something weird like that?
Yeah, but it's like different people. I
Oh,
think.
I mean, it would have to be since most of the seven die.
Yeah. There's very good lines at the end of this movie, and they kind of brush through it on the Magnificent Seven. But he says, basically, we didn't win. We didn't win this victory. The villagers won.
Oh, it's less that. It's that he says it's that only the farmers won. We lost.
Hmm. There's nothing they really get out of it. They just leave. And the Seventh Samurai also has a really good speech at the end where they say, uh, where the town basically goes on farming, and they kind of forget about the samurai fairly quickly. Um, but basically, the victories go to them because there's nothing that we really get out of it. It's just another job for us. We go on, and so it's kind of an interesting ending where the heroes, they do this heroic thing, but there's not like a grand reward for them, and most of them get killed. There's nothing they get out of it. They were killed for this scrap of money and food and board, basically. This very small living amount they get killed over. Um, but it's kind of a poetic end for them because that's the way things often go for people who do heroic things. They go in, get the job done, and then they're left to just go on and wander, and people forget about them. It's kind of I don't know, there's something very somber about it, but it kind of also shows you the way heroes often go on. They ride off into the sunset. They're just do this thing and then they move on. It's an interesting ending. It's different from other movies where the hero gets everything they want. they get the girl, and then they get, they're happily ever after sort of thing.
Well, I mean, at
The
least
one guy does get Chico becomes a farmer.
yeah, Chico kind of comes full circle because Chico grew up not in this village, been in the village very much like it, but he left the to find a different life, and then in the end, I guess, kind of seeing the other side of the coin, he decides to stay in this village with handily placed love interest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the Seven Samurai, they have a similar character who's also the comedy relief, and he is a farmer that decides he wants to be a samurai, which is not something you do in feudal Japan. To be a samurai, you have to be born into that class. They have different classes. So the fact that he's a farmer that tries to pass himself off as a samurai is a taboo. But he's like struggling with that because he feels like he comes from this inferior class and now he wants to be a samurai. You have to be born into that. It's a birthright. And he feels conflicted because he feels inferior himself, but at the same time he's upset at the samurai because they're not just they're like soldiers for hire. They sometimes raid villages as well as protect them. And so Chico has a couple of monologues in the Magnificent Seven, and those monologues, they're kind of there, but they're duplicates from this character from the Seven Samurai. And in that movie, those monologues make a lot of sense. But I don't know if they completely make sense in the Magnificent Seven as much.
Yeah.
They don't have as much context where all that.
Well, to be fair, a few times you've mentioned that the Seven Samurai spend a lot more time establishing things than the Magnificent Seven does, but
Yeah.
Seven Samurai is also almost twice as long.
Yeah. It's 3.5 hours. And this one, can't even talk anymore. The Magnificent Seven is 2 hours, right? It's about
2 hours. So yeah, maybe at some point we'll do the Seven Samurai on here. We'll do Jeff's original vision, but not this time. Instead we watch the next best thing, I guess. I don't know. Maybe there's actually quite a few westerns that are inspired by Japanese cinema.
Yeah.
And we might, if we come back to westerns, we'll probably talk about one of those, I bet.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
so you like it? I like it.
I like it. We both like it. We have not found the mythical movie that I like that Jeff doesn't yet. The search continues.
The search goes on for such a thing, if it exists.
Okay,
right, I think we're good. Yeah,
last call for final thoughts. Okay, look at us, clocking in less than an hour. Yay!
Yep, we're actually efficient as long as we close in the next 40 seconds.
Well, a lot of that stuff that's going to get is the preamble at the beginning that gets cut anyway. So
the time that I'm quoting is completely meaningless.
So we are safely under an hour here. Okay, so I'm just adding a pause there just in case you have one last final thought, which is usually what happens.
Yeah, but I'm good.
You're good?
If I say more, I'm just going to repeat myself. I think I hit the basic points.
Okay. But in that case, this was the Wandering Tangent Podcast. I'm BJ. With me was Jeff. And we'll see you next time.
Goodbye.